I've been saving this garden tour until after I had majority of everything planted. So let's go ahead, take a tour of the farmette, and I'll show you what is all in bloom and what's already growing. All right, so the greenhouse still isn't finished yet. It worked for us for this season, but it still has some aesthetics that have to get put into it. But we have other building projects going on. So right now, the greenhouse is just workable. It's effective. But let's take a look and see what's inside still. First off, we have this tomato plant. It is just potted in a pot, and it was actually one of the first tomato plants that I had. But I don't know where the seed came from, but it started on its own. Here I'm trying these volunteer tomatoes in a hanging baskets, just seeing how it goes. These are actually Rosa Sharons that I got from seed from my grandmother's Rosa Sharon bush down where I grew up. I still have some geraniums I want to plant, but I want to see about trying to save the seeds from those. So they need to be planted in a specific area. Over here, these are actually irises. I saved the seed from those, just put them in the pot in the greenhouse and just to see how they would go. We have some cabbages that I have enough cabbages, so I haven't done anything with those. And some just later plants. Here's some delphinium, some more marigolds, some alpine strawberries. And then this arrangement here, look at those petunias. They are from Burpee. They're actually a rather expensive seed, but just the blooms that they get on there is absolutely beautiful. There's the white one. So here at the back of the house, I just have 3 rows of petunias right next to each other. They were planted a little bit later, so they don't seem as full, but these were all started from balcony mix from Baker Creek, but they were from seeds that I saved. We have some mini roses as well as some hydrangeas there in the back. And of course we have volunteer sunflowers coming up. This variety here is a Henry Wild, also from Baker Creek. These aren't the best containers. This one was seeing better days. This here was all pansies, just en masse. These begonia plants, we've had weather of just rain, and then it's gotten sun, and they're just not, I don't think this is the right micro environment for them. And then here in the back is some more of the Burpee petunias, the double ones. And then they're centered here with a Dusty Miller cut flower. This shade of petunia, I just loved it so much, so I planted it all together. And this is the one thing about heirloom petunias. They grow more as like a cut flower. They have much longer stems. So here in a little bit, I'm just gonna have to come down and cut them so they can have a refresh. Here's another Dusty Miller, and clearly these petunias have gotten taller than it. More begonia arrangements that aren't looking their best. And then this arrangement here, we have some blue petunias, some white ones. This white one's really taken over. But we have this nice red flower that just waves throughout. This is my red, white, and blue arrangement. I also have a red geranium in the center, which I started from seed. We have 2 raised beds by our deck in our backyard here. So I just transplanted some of that lettuce. The rhubarb, we've been planning to get that moved out of here, but we always plant our garlic in here. And the garlic is about ready to pick, but Joda just noticed how we snipped off the seed parts. That way all of the energy is going into the roots. And this is also where I used to have tulips growing for some cut flowers. We have lilacs we have to plant, and then the radishes. I didn't get a radish harvest. They all just went to flower, all went to seed. I didn't even have time to pick them. So in this bed, we have some potatoes, we have some lettuce that I've been just picking for the chickens. It's really bitter because it was ready to start being picked when we had a 2-week heat wave and it was just dry. We also have some very early peas, which these peas, I actually started them in March, actually like the 2nd week of March. So these were very early to eat and enjoy as well as to plant. So that was pretty cool. Okay, with the farmette right here, we have a row of roses, We have our second garden, which we've intensely increased the size of it. And we have our main garden, which we actually had to make smaller because it was too wet up there at the top. So here with our roses, a lot of the roses died over winter because we got really cold temperatures, colder than what we usually have, and the roses just wouldn't be able to stand it. This David Austin rose, it survived. I also interplanted with geraniums. So geraniums are supposed to keep Japanese beetles away from the roses. So that's why they're planted there. I don't know if they're going to be enough or if you need like a lot of geraniums for those beetles to stay away. This is the new rose, which it got planted and then there's a heat wave, so it's not doing the best, but it's still growing. Here and all the way down, all of these roses, they're growing from their roots. So they're not, since they were hybrids and they were grafted, they're not going to be the same blooms that I had last year, which is a bummer, but it is what it is. At least there's still a rose growing there. So this garden here, it's not perfect. You're going to be seeing weeds. You're going to be seeing some plants that aren't looking the best, but I absolutely love it. I love walking in the center row with all of those plants. And if you think about it, like I've essentially planted majority of everything in here. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what is going on. So what's the first thing that you see when you come into the garden? The volunteer sunflowers. These are Henry Wilds, and we didn't even have sunflowers planted down here at the bottom last year. So you know the seeds just got in the rototiller and they came down. So to our left here, these are all Roma tomatoes. We have some volunteer sunflowers there. My plan with the Romas, it's actually not to actually get the suckers off. I'm just gonna let them go and see what they do. With our crop rotation, last year the tomatoes were here, but they were bumped up. This year is the melon family. So we have zucchini, we have cucumbers, which were started indoors in the greenhouse. And then over here, we have cucumbers that were started from seeds right in the ground. We have companion plants with nasturtium, as well as some marigolds. Next up is the cantaloupe, and we also have watermelon here at the end. The next two mini fields are the nightshades above ground. So we have tomatoes here, and they're trellised up kind of poorly, but they're doing their thing. So we do take the suckers off of these. That way then I can put more energy into the fruit that it's growing. It's also interplanted with some marigolds that still need to bloom, as well as some of those extra petunias that I had. And I'm gonna see if those sunflowers are gonna stay or not. I actually had to take some out before then. This bed here, the marigolds actually are in bloom, same with the petunias. The tomatoes haven't been staked yet. We need to buy more stakes and probably more string, but the hot peppers are down there so that they don't cross with the sweet peppers here. We have 2 rows of peas, and why I still do peas in rows, because if this was completely 4 foot filled with peas, you wouldn't be able to walk through it. I can't even walk through it right there, and it's trestled up. So, but the peas are germinating, and they were actually, this was planted about 2 weeks before this group. So we have the cabbage family here, which includes cabbages, cauliflower, broccoli, red cabbage, late flat Dutch cabbage, as well as interplanted with some geraniums as well as petunias. The one thing I wish I would have planted here would have been marigolds as well. That can also be another companion plant for these. There's also some nasturtium. I've had potato beds that have looked so much better than this before. I planted them earlier than usual, and it seems like they've been liking it. It's just some of them were a little bit spotty. I did sprinkle some lettuce seeds throughout, but it didn't get as thick as I thought it would. But that lettuce is black Simpson, and it tastes absolutely amazing. All right, here's the bed with the beans. And the beans we interplanted with some carrots as well as the petunias. And over in this section we have some smaller marigolds. And that the flowers are there to help make sure the bugs are staying away. We also did a succession, which the second succession didn't do too great, but there should be another row of beans going down here. And if there's not, I'll just go ahead and replant them. So that there was 4 sections of the vegetable garden. We had our melons, we had our nightshades, we had our heavy feeders of potatoes and cabbages mixed with the peas and the beans. So then that's all gonna get crop rotated. Essentially all the beds are just going to get moved up, and then the beans and the potatoes will get moved down there. So we grow cut flowers to sell at the farmers market as well as subscriptions. So here are just some of the warm loving stuff. What I've learned with this landscape fabric, you have to have something heavy to hold it down, as well as you can't be planting cool loving flowers in this because it'll just get too hot. So anything that's heat loving like marigolds or cosmos, they're fine. They'll love this. I swear, absolutely, marigolds are some of my favorite flowers. And I just have a love-hate relationship with baby's breath. I just can't grow it for bouquets. Looks pretty, looks dainty. I don't think I'm going to be growing it again. So these cut flower beds, they are 4 foot wide by 24 feet long. These zinnias were all planted from seeds. There's some sunflowers. They do need pinch. So pinching is meaning that you're going to come down here and just pinch right above a set of leaves. So there's all sorts of different types of zinnias in here, which will be nice because it's just nice to have a different variety of the same type of flower. We had a heat wave at the end of May and beginning of June. This originally had landscape fabric, and what happened, I planted from about to here down to this sunflower and everything just fried. So I took it off. Anything that was remaining, I just put mulch around it, and then I planted right in that mulch. So this finishes off some of the warm loving flowers. So we have status here. And if we keep going, we have some basil. And then everything up from this point is sunflowers. So we have single stem, more single stem, and if you notice they keep getting smaller, that's because they were succession planted. And then we have our branching sunflowers up there, which I put 2 seeds in some of those holes, so they'll need to be taken out and just moved. We have empty spots in the garden, like up there and down here. I have 2 more sets of successions for sunflowers yet to go. This was actually the first, and I actually looked behind some of the second round of things. Up here, these were all volunteer Henry Wild sunflowers. Some of them we moved over and tried to make rows. Others, like right here, they're just gonna do what they're gonna do. I'm not gonna be messing with them. And then here is our sweet corn field. We had problems with crows. They were just coming up and the crow would actually pull out the whole plant. So that's why it's a little bit spotty, but it's still gonna be providing us with lots and lots of corn. What we did is we have a section of heirloom corn right here, followed by, well, we have 2 different types of varieties. One is peaches and cream, and the other has a different maturity date. So that allows us to plant at the same time, but we'll have 2 different times to pick sweet corn, which will be nice because then we're not getting it all at once and getting sick of it. Here, this was just all the leftover plants that I had that I'm like, I don't know what to do with. So we had some peppers and basil back there, and we have some young cabbages and broccoli here, as well as the sunflowers that we first started, as well as some of just the extra ones that I took from over there and transplanted them back here. So moving along, past those volunteer sunflowers, we have 3 patches of strawberries. So we have Joel here, and we have 2 beds of sparkle down there. It's just going to be over the years that I'm just trying to get more varieties and try new things out, because strawberry plants are something that I haven't started to grow since last year. So that's it. I didn't grow up with them, but they are absolutely delicious. Just the runners can be a pain to deal with. I also planted some peas in with the strawberries. Although they can be companion plants, just the way I planted these strawberries, like, it's just not working out. They're more of a pain to try to get across, and they didn't grow up as tall as some of those other ones. I have some spring flowers here. So this bed was with daffodils. I'll probably put my third and last accession of sunflowers right here. And then we have irises. Stairway to Heaven irises. It was just 7 years ago. I started with 1 root, and now I probably have 120 plants of it. And like I said, we have weeds. It's just something you try your best to manage, and then sometimes they just do what they do. Here are the beds of lilies. This is my favorite part of the garden right now. It is definitely lily season. These are all Asiatic lilies, so these are kind of your warm tone flowers. They come in yellow, orange, and red. And I perennialize them, so they're not ideal for cut flowers, but I'll just snip one and then I'll arrange flowers all throughout this huge thing with tons of blooms. Right. These sunflowers are Henry Wowell's. They're our volunteers ones. My husband didn't want to rototill them over, so he dug them up and moved them over here next to the peonies. I have kind of bad luck with peonies in a way. I have some, here they are, but getting them the first year, buying them clearance at Walmart or Lowe's or something, it just isn't the best thing to do, because they may be actually rotted by the time you even plant them. So we actually did get peonies on them this year. So that has been like a 3-year wait. Here's some younger peonies, and then I started some teddy bear sunflowers in the greenhouse, and then on a rainy day I went and transplanted them. The biggest thing with transplanting things like sunflowers or things that may very well wilt and they don't like to be transplanted is you have to wait for an overcast rainy day. I know it's funny because people are going to be like, it's raining and you're out in your garden, but sometimes that is the best time to plant these things. And then it's best to have at least like a couple days of rain, but sometimes you don't do that. The weather's like, nope, we're gonna be hot and sunny for a long, long time. That was our case. So the teddy bear sunflowers, I actually had to wait until we had about 2 weeks of rain for the soil to get saturated again, as well as for them not to completely wilt and just die off.